Nice to have in the studio with us today, my good friend Larry Knight, Pastor Larry Knight, one of the pastors on staff at the First Church of the Nazarene, and they're doing something for the community and all churches, really. I think they're opening up their facilities to talk about the issue of church security. I had Jerry on talking about this, Larry.
Yeah.
And it is a huge, growing concern, isn't it?
It's a huge concern, Perry. And one of the things we're finding is that, there's a basis when people come on our campus that we discover, and that is that people expect that when they come onto a church campus that they feel that they're safe.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're trying to address that issue and make sure that we are creating an environment that really is a safe environment for people to come in and know that every aspect of while they're visiting with us is going to be safe and secure.
All right, now you're going to do a seminar on this and spend a day on this, and I want to give the details on that. And I just want to say to pastors, you may want to have some of your associates or you yourself attend this seminar and learn about church security. It is becoming, you cannot ignore this. You cannot ignore this. It is the dynamics of our culture, what's happening, and I know you're going to cover a lot of things. So when is the seminar?
Perry, the seminar takes place on Tuesday, September the 18th.
Okay, so a week from tomorrow.
A week from tomorrow. It's an all-day seminar.
Okay.
It starts at 9 in the morning and it goes till 4:15. Includes lunch.
Okay.
And it's going to cover a number of topics and things that are appropriate in the whole issue of security. We're going to talk about what happens if a child goes missing in classroom, and we know child safety is extremely important.
Right.
Developing check-in, check-out systems. What happens if you have a non-custodial parent that wants to pick up a child? Tracking child. What happens if a child walks out of classroom?
Mm-hmm.
All those kind of issues. We're going to talk about unstable persons in terms of disrupting a service.
Right.
We've all been in those kind of situations.
Right.
What happens if somebody just gets sick during service? If somebody goes down because of a medical issue, how do you respond to that? How should we identify our campuses, and what does that mean? We're going to talk about receptionists having to deal with public on a daily basis. What happens if you come in with a disruptive or a hostile person into your church facility on a day-to-day basis? So all of those kind of topics are going to be covered in that seminar. It's not, and the one thing I like about this particular seminar is that it's not just a sit and listen, it's hands-on. There's some role-playing, there's some things that will help us actually take away some things that'll allow us to put in place.
Well, it's becoming a concern, because I know that you can't, the last thing we want to do is go to church through a metal detector.
Yeah, exactly.
And yet I do know that some large churches are doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And you say, well, why? I mean, this is a church. Well, these are the dynamics in which we live.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do if somebody brings a gun into the building? What do you do with that?
Right.
What do you do if somebody has a heart attack in the pew? What do you do with that?
Right.
The children's security thing is huge.
It's huge.
You believe it or not, pastors, those who preach, have to be secure.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right.
It's hard to believe that there are people out there that would want to harm these people, but they are vulnerable.
Yeah. And the issue that you raised, Perry, about individuals bringing guns onto campus, we hear about it across our nation all the time. There have been almost 40 individuals killed in churches just this year from guns on campuses of churches. And so it's real live issues that we talk about. And we don't want to go through metal detectors when we walk in the door.
Mm-hmm.
And so, part of this will help us develop what we're calling, and what we look at the NAZ as a comprehensive plan that begins with the parking lot. We've got eyes and ears in our parking lot. People that are out wandering that just simply know what's going on. They're keeping an eye for the people that are wandering through. They're watching as cars come in and park. It begins there in knowing what's happening on our campuses, because as you pointed out, every aspect from pastor to the parishioner sitting in the pew, the parent that brings their infant into the nursery, they want to make sure that that's a safe, secure environment for their kids. And so how do we put that together? We'll talk about developing, and what we have done is we've worked with our insurance company and others, and we've developed a pretty multi-layered plan that helps us in the process of that. Where we've identified in our church our medical personnel. We know who they are. We know what services they typically attend, where they're normally at while they're on our campuses.
Mm-hmm.
So if we need to get a hold of a medical personnel because we've got an emergency in service, we know how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're in the process of training individuals. We'll have guys at this security training as well, as we're trying to expand and make it broader for us because it's so important.
All right, so you'll train a parking lot attendant, an usher.
An usher.
What happens if somebody just comes in and disturbs the service?
Well, part of that.
We've had those.
We've had those.
In fact, I was standing in the back one day and that happened, and
Yeah.
I learned something on that experience.
Yeah.
Not to touch them with your hands, but I used my body and pushed them out the door.
Yeah.
And I learned something on that. That's a whole nother lesson I didn't want to learn, but
welcome to real life. Huh?
Yeah, right.
No, and actually, Perry, those are kind of the things that we'll cover in this seminar. How do you handle those kind of situations? Because it does happen.
Yeah.
And what really happens in that is that your ushers, your greeters, they become your first line of defense.
Right.
Even because you may have people that are in law enforcement sitting in your service. But by the time they're able to respond, oftentimes there's already an incident taking place. And so you've got to have people that are right there at the doors, right there in the vicinity of what's taking place, that know how to respond. If you don't, you find yourself in situations where anything could happen.
The children's security issue, I want to come back to that because that's a biggie. I know that at First Church of the Nazarene they have the Blossom Hills School. You have a huge Sunday school program.
Yeah.
I mean, you're filling 3 floors in the new building with children and kids. And when a parent checks a child in, what happens?
We've got a computerized system for our school-age children. So once they come in,
they're barcoded.
They're barcoded essentially into their ID tag. And so we know where they are when they check in. We know what program they're going to be involved in, which tells us where they are on campus during the time frame that they're there that morning. And in order for that child to be picked up, the parent that checked them in has to check them out. And that all works through our scan system. And we've got a process of moving them through our building so that we can tell if a parent picks up or not. You know, we've got a pretty good system of communication. We had a question come up here a couple of weeks ago where we got word that a non-custodial parent may be coming to campus to pick up a child. Well, we knew who that child was, we knew where that child was, and we knew how to identify them very easily. And so we were able to contact the parent that had checked the child in and follow through on the security measures. Is what we really did. But that's really important to us. When we check in our infants, we have a band system that we use so that the child is identified with the band, our parents are identified with the band, and the only way that child can be picked up is by the parent that has that matching band.
Yeah, I just want to say again to pastors that are listening and watching this morning, this is a growing concern, and I think that it's part of our stewardship responsibility that we become good stewards of security as well. And so you're offering, is there a cost to this?
There is. It's $149, Perry, to participate in the conference.
Okay.
They may be offering some discounts at this point, but the standard registration is $149.
What do they do? How do they get registered?
If they will go to cpps.com, it stands for the Center of Personal Protection and Safety, cpps.com or cpps.site.com/training.
Okay.
That will take them to the registration site that they can participate.
All right, let me encourage you to do this. Whether, Pastor, you go yourself or you send one of maybe your head usher or your head parking lot attendant or somebody that can become the point person for security in your church. You know, it's a sad day we have to take these measures, but it is also the realism of what we're living in. I have huge security issues even here at the Dove because people don't like what you say.
Yeah.
You know?
And you know, one of the things we haven't even addressed, Perry, that we'll talk about too is the whole concept and the whole thing of lockdown. What happens if you do have somebody in your building that is intent on doing harm? You mentioned the fact that we have a preschool with Blossom Hills. We've got a full lockdown procedure that actually flows into our Sunday ministry as well. So if we know we have either an intruder that is near campus or on campus, we have a system of locking down where our children are so that they're safe and secure so that we don't have to worry about an intruder entering those parts of the building.
Yeah. These are just measures that we have to do today, and it's just the reality of things that happen. But it's not only for protection of the person who would come in, disturb, or try to do harm. It also deals with medical issues and those kinds of things as well, and certainly with kids. And I think you're so right on target by it really starts in the parking lot, because after a while, you know, it's interesting, people park in the same place, they sit in the same place.
Yeah.
You begin to see the patterns of people, and when there's a break in that pattern or you see somebody strange coming in, the radars should go off.
Yeah,
you know?
and they do. We've even gone so far as to identify our campus. A lot of us are good with north, south, east, west. There's a lot of individuals, particularly in a crisis situation, that are not. And so we've identified our campus by landmark. And so we can identify landmark, and we've passed that information along to emergency services. So when they respond, they know what we're talking about, because they typically operate by north, south, east, west.
Okay.
And so we've been able to say, you know, that's at the entrance where the fountain is, or this occurred in our courtyard. We've been able to use common identifiers to help us. We have had a heart attack take place in a Sunday school classroom. And so we've beginning to address all those issues, and have addressed many of those issues. And that's what this seminar will help us to do.
So you'll actually come up with a plan that you can give to the fire department and the police department?
Yeah, we actually took a aerial shot off of Google of our campus, and we tagged every entrance with what it is. And then we have trained all of our ushers. They know what those identifying marks are, and we've passed that information on to emergency response.
All right, so recap, it's going to be a week from tomorrow.
Week from tomorrow, the 18th.
Right. And they should go to the website of
cpps.com or cpps.com/training, and they will get to the training site.
And it's going to be held there at the First Church of the Nazarene from 9 to 4:15.
9 to 4:15.
It includes lunch.
It does.
Let me encourage folks to do that. I would mention to you before we went on the air, I was a guest speaker at a church in New York, and because of the multicultural situations there and all the dynamics in that culture, that part of the state up there in the Hudson Valley, this church had literally had security guards, I would say, every 40 feet. And so you walked in and you knew they were security. So the image they got is that you were being watched.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And I know video cameras is another way that churches are going nowadays. They actually have video security going on. So there's a million ways to address it.
Yeah.
But you got to take it on. So.
You do, and even identifying security so people know who they are.
Yeah.
I mean, just the identification process tends to eliminate people knowing that there's people there.
All right, Larry. Thanks, man, for doing it.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Perry. It's
All
good
right.
to see
God
you.
bless. All right. We'll be right back on Focus Today.